All right, so we're back. We're gonna go over my birth story. So like I was saying in my last video, I was one day before my due date, and we had drinking a castor oil smoothie in the morning, just hoping to get things going because I didn't want to go overdue. And we went for a walk, and then we were resting. I was watching the Hunger Games. There was like a marathon going on, and at 2 o'clock I felt like two little popping feelings inside, and so I went to the bathroom, and that was that. I went to the bathroom, and then I had like a mild contraction. I went and sat back down, and then I felt like I needed to pee again, and so I tried to pee, and then I got really nauseous, and so I vomited everything I had eaten for the entire day up. Vomited like 5 times, which castor oil can make you nauseous. And then I started spotting, which I had already lost like all of my mucus plug. Like we had been doing evening primrose oil and like a flex disc at night to loosen all of the mucus up, to get rid of the mucus plug, since I'd already started losing it at 37 weeks. That is what my midwife recommended. And so we did that. We had no mucus plugs. We were just spotting instead of having like a bloody show with mucus in it. And then I kept having contractions, and I started timing them because I was like, oh shit, I'm in labor. And I texted my husband because he had just went to the gym, and my mom was asleep on the couch, and I decided to let her rest because labor takes a while. But shocker, it did not take that long because we had been doing dates and the evening primrose oil and the red raspberry leaf tea, all things that make your labor go that are supposed to make your labor shorter and the active phase of labor shorter, and have stronger contractions so that you can more effectively birth your child. So I kept having contractions. I was timing them. I tried to get in the tub because they were just getting real aggressive after I had tried to like get on my ball and just like rock back and forth leaning over the ball, and that didn't help. And so I decided to go back to my bedroom away from where my mom was sleeping. They were coming pretty fast, and they were very, very strong. So I got in the bath. It didn't help. I called the birth center number to just let them know what was going on. Like, hey, I'm in labor. What do you want me to do? And I had a contraction while I was on the phone with her, and we literally had to stop talking so that I could get through my contraction. And she's like, well, let's wait an hour and call me and let me know what's going on, just in case it was like false labor and it just stopped at an hour, because sometimes that can happen, but mine did not. And then I kept having contractions, and at that point when I had called her, my contractions were 3.5 to 4.5 minutes apart, and they were lasting for a minute, and they were super severe, and nothing I did really helped me feel any better, which is real contractions. There's no escape. You just have to suffer through them until they're over. Luckily, they don't last very long, but while they're happening, it is very, very freaking intense. Like I had painful periods before, and I've had a miscarriage where it was very painful and I vomited from the pain, but this was like on another level. And so my husband finally got home. He took a shower because he was at the gym. He shaved, and like while that was happening, I was just like, every time I would hit, I would try and like lay over the bed and just like I'd just scream. And I was just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. Especially thinking that like, holy shit, this could last for 12 hours or something. Like, if this is how intense they are, there is no way I'm gonna get through. And at that point, he woke my mom up, and she was like, oh, what? She's in labor? I had no idea. And then like, I was like, I can't do this. That's when I finally voiced to them that like, I don't think I can do this. And then like I would go back and forth to the living room talking to my mom, and then it would hit, and then I would just be like, ah, ah. And I would go and just for whatever reason, sitting on the toilet was the only comfort I could find while I was in active labor. It was the only thing that felt comfortable until about an hour into contractions. I started having back labor. And so sitting on the toilet didn't help anymore. Like I would still do it because it was just comforting, I guess. And it was just like that was where I felt safe and comfortable before. So I just kept doing it. And like my back would just go numb during contractions and I could feel it in my legs and it was just awful. And after about 30 minutes of that, I was just like, fuck it, here's the number. Call the midwives. Tell her I can't handle this anymore. Tell her whatever. And they had been timing it. She said we didn't need to time it, but they had been timing it because they were just like, let's time this. And so they called and they're like, okay, this sounds like something could be happening. You can come in and I'll check you. But we just don't want you to come in. So we'll wait until 4:15 because I can't get there until 4:15, which was like, I would have been there at 4 anyways. So it would have been the time we would have met originally anyways, if she had told me to come in when I called again in another hour after I first talked to her. And so we waited for like, I think it was like 10 minutes I had to get through before we could get in the car. And we got everything. My husband had put everything in the car already. And when it was time to get in the car, they got me a rag because we didn't have like a stress ball or anything to squeeze just so I could make it through the car ride to get to the birth center because my contractions were so intense. But yeah, she didn't want me to come too soon because she didn't want me to have to go home. But luckily, we were in the clear once we got there. Little did we know. Thank goodness though, honestly. Whew. But yeah, when we came time to get in the car, I did not want to get in the car. I was just like, no, I can't survive this. This is a 15-minute drive and I don't want to do it. We are not getting in the car. I literally cried. I was like, I don't want to get in the car. But we did it. We got in the car. I squeezed the rag really hard and I was just like, whenever a contraction came on, at that point they were about 2 minutes apart for about a minute and a half. We made it to the birth center. We got inside. I had to go to the bathroom, so we went to the bathroom. And then she checked me. And then while we were standing there, like there's like blood dripping down my leg after she had checked me. And my husband was like, okay, I'm gonna go get the stuff out of the car. And she's like, no, there's no time. And they're like, okay. And they're like, I was 9.5 centimeters dilated. And that was at like 4:20, and I started labor at 2 o'clock. And so we went upstairs to where the birth suites are, and she figured there was still some time. So basically I had transitioned in the car, which is when you go from like 8 to 10 centimeters, it's called transition. So we had transitioned from active labor into like the pushing phase while we were in the car. We went upstairs, got in the room. There was still time, so I sat on a birthing stool while she started running the tub because I had wanted a water birth. And while that was happening, my back labor was really hard, so she showed my husband how to massage my back just to kind of help me through the contractions as much as possible. Obviously it still hurts while it's happening, but it makes it a little more bearable. And then she checked me again and she said it was okay to start trying to push if I wanted to because there's just like a little bit of cervix left. And then we got in the tub finally, and that was nice. We were in the tub probably, I would say, about an hour, guessing. There was no clock around, and I had taken my watch off earlier when I got in the bath at home, so I had no clue what time it was. But I was lifting my hips up whenever I would have a contraction out of the water, and she didn't want that to happen if I was going to push the baby out, because if they get air and water, they could suck in water before they come up and they get drowned. So you have to have the baby underwater because they won't breathe until they're out of the water. But if I was raising my hips up and out during, it could be a risk. So we got out of the tub. We sat on this birthing stool for a little bit. Occasionally I would get up and go to the bathroom. I kept feeling like I needed to go number 2. Which I did because the castor oil, it made me vomit, but I never went to the bathroom because of the castor oil. Even though it's supposed to be like a laxative, but whatever. And then she was like, do you want me to help push aside the last little bit of cervix to try and help while you push, to try and get rid of that last little bit so we could be 10 centimeters. And then that was really painful, so I made her stop. We tried a different birthing stool they had that was like an inflatable one. I did not like that. And then at some point they had switched like the assisting midwife because they had to go to a different labor. And they made me do inversions on the bed, which anytime I got on the bed while I was in labor still, like side lying is supposed to be comforting. I got on the bed, and anytime I got on the bed, I was just like, no, no, no. It was like the most uncomfortable feeling in the world. I did not like having contractions while laying on the bed. And then they made me do inversions for 4 contractions. That was so awful. I made it through. Luckily, once I got to the birth center, though, honestly, my contractions got a little more bearable. They were still awful, but since they were letting me push, it gave me something to do. So it wasn't as intense on me and my psyche, because in the contractions in the beginning, I was just losing my mind. I was like, this is too intense. I can't do this. I can't do this. Because obviously I was having rapid labor, and it slowed down once we got to the birthing center for the actual pushing part. Relatively, I mean, we still got her out really fast. They kept monitoring me during it with the Doppler. Her heart rate was always in the 130, so it was already borderline low. They wanted to try and speed things along, so we went and did lunges on the stairs. They made me like sidewalk down the stairs, and then on the way back up, I would like put one foot like 2 steps up and kind of lunge into it, and then put it down, and then go up a stair and do the other side. And then if I had contractions during it, they would let me be in the lunging position and try and push. And at that point, I really had to go to the bathroom, and it was really painful. And so after we were done with that, we went up the stairs like 1.5 times, and then I had to go to the bathroom. So they finally let me go, and I finally went number 2. So I was like, I know I have to poop. And then it was just like, I think it was just like mentally, I was like, I don't want to shit myself, so I will go on the toilet. And obviously they have to watch you, which is at that point you just don't care at all, because they just have to make sure you're not pushing out the baby, because it feels the same. It's the same muscles. And it puts a lot of pressure down there when the baby is lower. So we did that finally. They checked the heart rate, and it was very low, and they're like, and so they tried to break my bag of waters to get things moving. She couldn't get it breaking, but my water was bulging. They couldn't get it to break, but they were like, her heart rate is dropping, we need to get her out, we have to push. So we laid on the bed, like on the side of the bed, and I had to hold my legs and push. And apparently I was pushing wrong, because you know how most people like moan through labor. I was like just bearing down. I was just like, ah. Apparently when I was doing that, it was kind of like sucking her back up a little bit instead of pushing her out. And so to get her out, they're like, don't make sounds while you're pushing. Like, no sounds. And so that helped. We were having more effective pushing. But she wasn't coming fast enough, and so they decided to start pushing my knees together, because if you push your knees inwards, it opens the lower half of your pelvis to make more room for the baby to come out. And so they did that while I was having contractions, and like towards the end, obviously it doesn't matter if you're having a contraction or not, you just push as hard as you can. Like, I had to get her out or we were going to the hospital. And finally we were out, and my husband was like sitting behind me, like holding my arms while I pushed. Oh, and yeah, I had a huge bruise from the birth center tub, from like holding the edges of it while I was having contractions. It was like a big bruise. It's mostly gone now. I'm currently 11 days postpartum. But wow, so intense. And I guess from his view, obviously he could see all of the blood coming out, because having a baby is very bloody. And he could see what he thought might be her, but he wasn't sure if it was her hair, because she has a lot of hair. And then finally she came out. They had to help a little bit, and the whole time they were like all up in my junk, holding it apart, and like, you know, making sure you have pressure on the perineum and stuff like that. And they had to kind of like help her a little bit, I think, because she wasn't very responsive. They had to help her kind of turn her shoulders and get her out. But she was out. They put her on my chest for a second, but she was very purple. And they tried to rough her up a bit, you know, and make her cry. She was still kind of lazy. So they kept her attached to the cord. They put her beside me, and they gave her oxygen. Like, I was wearing oxygen towards the end too. Like, oh, I also forgot to say. While I was pushing on the bed, they gave me nitrous oxide to help with the pain some. And then towards the end, her heart rate was dropping very low, and they were like, we have to get her out. So they gave me oxygen so that she could have more oxygen, so that we would have more time to push at the birth center before we had to go to the hospital, like, immediately, which isn't that big of a deal. It's literally like 100 yards down the street from the birth center, but scary nonetheless. And apparently she was posterior, so she came out with her face up, which babies are supposed to have their head facing your back so that the soft spot can go around your pubic bone. And that's why I have back labor, because when they're that way, the hard part of their head is going against your spine, which hurts. And then they figured out while I was in labor, pushing her out. Most people, women, whenever you are pregnant, relax and releases like the collagen or whatever in like your pubic symphysis, like in the middle, so it moves more, so it can flex. Mine never did. Mine was rock solid. So she came between my spine and my pubic bone, which are both really hard. So she came between two hard spaces to get out. So it was really hard for her to come out, but we got her out. We did it unmedicated, vaginally, and we got her out safely. She got resuscitated, and then I was losing a bunch of blood. I lost 1 liter of blood. They finally were able to get it to stop. They gave me they gave me Pitocin first to get out my placenta, and then they were like, oh, you're bleeding a lot, and they couldn't figure out where it was coming from, so they gave me the whatever blood clotting drug they use to help slow the bleeding. And then that stopped enough, so they let me just sit there with her on my chest for like a few hours before they cut the cord, and we got a picture of her attached to her placenta still. And then my husband held her while they stitched me up. I didn't have any external tears, but I had 2nd-degree tears, but they were all internal. And I honestly, right now, they're almost non-existent pain. So that's good. And yeah, I've been very active. They told me to be on bed rest at home for the first week, and I still ended up doing more than I should have, but I was fine. because I just wanted to help and be with her. My mom changed her diapers for a while until I got better towards the end of the week, but I would hold her and feed her and just be with her on the couch in the living room, because at night she doesn't like to sleep at night, so it's easier to just be with her in the living room and let my husband sleep or let my mom sleep until I can't stay awake anymore, and then my mom would watch her, and then I would sleep for like 5 hours, and then I would come and be with her again for the rest of the day. So I would get like 3 to 5 hours of sleep the whole first week. The last 2 days I got 7 to 8 hours of sleep, so that was nice. But anyways, they stitched me up. They finally weighed her. She was 6 pounds, 14 ounces. She had a really big cone head, so she was like 21 inches, which her first pediatrician after her head went down. She was 20 inches. This past appointment, she was 20.75 inches. And she's already up to her birth weight plus an ounce. So she's almost 7 pounds now at 10 days, because that was yesterday. She hasn't had any jaundice, which is really great for a breastfed baby. And she's really good. She sleeps a lot. She poops a lot. She has been really hungry the last few days, but she gained a lot of weight, so she's growing. She's so cute. We took little cute photos of her with a tutu. We got to take a bath at the birth center, like an herbal bath together before we went home. And yeah, all in all, my pushing time at the birth center was 3.5 hours. So in 5.5 hours, I had a baby. And there was no build-up contractions beforehand, like no like small inkling or anything leading up to it. It was just straight up popping sensation. Boom, you're in active labor. It's hospital time. So yeah, 2 hours for active labor. We transitioned in the car, obviously. And then it was time to push once we got there. And it took 3.5 hours. To get my sweet little girl here. She's sleeping right now. This is Adeline Daniel. And I love her. She's special. She's so sweet. Hi, girly. And I couldn't be happier. We're so in love. We're just super happy to have her. Our little rainbow baby. Our little angel baby. And that was how you were born. Also, I forgot to mention, okay, total weight gain for my pregnancy. I ended up my pregnancy at 227.3. So that was like a 23.5 pound gain from my starting weight of 203.7. That's just guesstimating. I don't know the exact number, but it's like 23 point something pounds. But one day after postpartum, I was 213, and then a week later I was 211.2, and then yesterday I was 209.5. So I only have about 6 pounds left to go before I'm back at my pre-pregnancy weight. And I haven't even been able to start exercising yet. All I do is take her for a walk 3 to 4 times a week for about 30 minutes. And there's obviously breastfeeding, and then I have a postpartum belly band that I wear for like a couple hours a day. But yeah, super excited to see where we are in a month. Here's my belly. But we're doing great, and we're feeling good, and I'm so excited.